Welcome to the Candy Shop Show on the Diamond Network. This is April 27th, 2016. We have an exciting guest speaker. She comes from Florida. And but before we get to the topics about Keshe technology and Cobra's predictions, let's take a moment to be centered and to call in our galactic friends, our star brothers and sisters and guides, and ask for a blessing on our universe and those that are connecting with us tonight and later on YouTube. And so we like to say and affirm the very positive law of one. And I would like Sunny from California to share that with us.
Thank you, Candy. I'd be very pleased to share that. We are all one. We are all one with everything and everyone and all life in the universe. When one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all, I ask that only that which serves the greater good, the highest good of all concerned, happen now, here and now, and throughout all time, space, and dimensions, manifesting here on our lovely planet Earth, here and now. I give thanks to this be done, and so it is. Blessings.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunny.
You're quite welcome.
Well, would love for you to help me with the candy jar treats. We're going to start with that. I'm going to twist the lid off and see what kind of interesting things I can share this evening. Of course, I shared Monday night about Benjamin Davidson predicting, because of the sunspots and the solar flares from suspicious observers, that there would be earthquakes in 2 days. Well, I think their uptick in the earthquakes started in 1 day, and it's very strange. I was looking at the earthquake map, and it looked like they were erasing the earthquakes so that we couldn't see, how many have been happening right in front of our eyes. Now, there are several predicting online that the Olympics in Brazil will not take place. So,
because of earthquakes?
Yeah. Sinkhole, and the political upheaval. The richest banker in the world is a Brazilian banker. They're trying to get him arrested. There's just all kinds of crazy things going on. I mean, one of the part of the Olympic track, fell in this huge sinkhole last week. So, well, anyway, I thought we'll see what our guest has to say about that later. But I thought I would share something from some suspicious observers of the sun. And is my volume good tonight, Sunny?
Oh, pardon. What did you?
Can you hear me clearly?
I miss some of what you're saying. I generally can hear you, yes, but sometimes I miss a word or two. But
okay, well, you interrupt me if you think I should change what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. So this is suspicious observers from YouTube.
First, let's come to spaceweathernews.com, and the last day on our star was very quiet. Coronal holes, plasma filaments, still taking the top spots to watch. The southeast incoming, a surface surge this morning that also probably won't be producing anything for our planet. Looking at the solar wind shows some denser waves this morning, but with lessened speed. Any disruptions will be moderate at worst, but we expect a bigger impact towards this weekend from the solar wind spewing out of this Earth-facing coronal hole system. The good news is that our quake watch from it began slowly, more unusual locations upticking in a mid-magnitude swarm up and down South America. They are likely the ones to start the slow rise of earthquakes due to the twin Earth spots straddling landmass. Neither over a fault just yet, but they're moving. So while we luckily started slowly, the bad news with the quake uptick on our doorstep is that it may not just be 6 magnitude. In addition to the Earth-facing coronal hole system, we've got a major surge in heliospheric energy with a rise in sunspot activity. They are now popping up across our star, and although they have failed to get active thus far, no real flaring, just a slight uptick rise, we are beginning to see magnetic complexity born and spreading among these young and undersized active regions. Beta polarity with delta potential at 3 locations if we get some more. Website members will recall that this time at the end of the month was right for a solar uptick as the primary heliocentric geometry comes into play, Mercury, Sun, and Venus. The sunspots are indeed surging after that last big one departed, as seen as to dip down and rise back up in our coverage app testing here. Sunspot number itself on fire as well. The peak should come imminently, so while the first day of the earthquake watch was modest, the peak may go higher than I expected. Let's run through the top stories. First, a German nuclear plant discovered to be full of computer viruses. Current stopgap is to keep the system unplugged from the internet, which is like duct tape on a gunshot wound. Apparently, Earth is getting greener, much greener. I once thought my biology professor was crazy for saying Earth had been approaching a dangerously low level of CO2 for plants before the Industrial Revolution, but I've since heard it from NASA folks as well, and this study seems to show what the plants are really asking for. Lots of observers also take an interest in social elements of the alternative media world, like finding out the truth about all these chemicals that weren't properly tested. Turns out, regulators are ready to fight back a bit. Despite the revolving door between government and companies like Monsanto and DuPont, it appears at least a few of them are saying no more. Weather got a bit rough in the United States last night, but not so rough as it could have been. Hail and flooding were more of a story than tornado events, and we're very thankful for that. Eyes open for those in tonight's storm zones, as that same lucky streak can't be guaranteed again tonight. Across the pond, the major story is the wind drive around below, driving Arctic air down for a winter reminder for much of the area. Top center here, you see an Earth spot crossing the subduction zone near Japan. Not a typhoon, but don't tell that to the precipitation totals. They don't care. Down under, they're still watching that Antarctic low reaching up towards land there. It begins to crest over them tonight and into tomorrow. Featured content today is our special release from last week, the #1 risk to Earth. If you didn't catch it yet, you can just Google the name or head over to suspiciousobservers.org, and it's the second video down right there on the homepage. Got shots of our star to close. It's 4:15 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I couldn't hear it all absolutely clearly. I missed maybe a quarter to a third of what he was saying, but I got the general drift, and I didn't want to interrupt because I thought others might be getting it more than I am, or hearing it more than I am. But,
okay. Well, this was, I did not get a chance to preview all of it first, and I'm amazed that he thinks that we're going to have gigantic earthquakes this weekend. 7.0. It's very possible. He said 6.0, but maybe some 7.0. So usually those earthquakes start in the eastern ring of fire, and then they're in the southern. Now, in the last 24 hours, we had quite a few in South America. So I don't. So if we have a lot in Asia on Saturday, they might be in North America or South America on Sunday. So this is interesting. But of course, you have the low quiets, and then it gets more active, and that's what he's been saying, that we did have a little bit of a low. So do you hear me just fine right now, Sunny?
Can I hear you fine?
Yes.
There's a little bit of muffledness in there, but I can generally hear you. Yeah. A little bit of. Yeah. He was saying that solar flares are responsible or partly responsible for the earthquakes. Is that what I gathered?
Yes.
Solar flares. Yeah, because I saw something on Facebook a few days ago that said that the Earth's magnetosphere or magnetic field collapsed for 2 hours on a particular day, I guess just a few days ago, and that would allow more of that solar radiation to come in. That I don't know how valid that was, but I just remember.
No, it's absolutely true. And of course, Benjamin Davidson, he won $300,000 from the angel investors so that he could devote full time. And normally he's based out of Pennsylvania, and he would always come on at 6 a.m. the last few years. Now, let's see. He put this up this morning, and there's already been 20,000 views. In a couple of more days, there'll be 40,000 views. So he's quite popular, and his website is Suspicious Observers with a 0, not an O, .org. And he said that second video would talk about the scientists, the alternative scientists that he worked with, their concern of the number one risk to Earth. But we know that he doesn't take the star brothers and sisters into calculations and what he says to say. So I also follow Benjamin Fulford. His report was quite interesting this week. I would encourage folks to look at that on YouTube as we're waiting for the Federal Reserve bankers to make a decision to accept help from Asia, and that that the Chinese will not wait forever for their agreement for their help with reorganizing our global financial situation. As you know, our star brothers and sisters have said that we want to get, within 5 years, we want to get to the kind of financial system that was pictured in Star Trek. And we have to take down the old to get to something positive. And the Chinese want to move forward with this. And, of course, the regular bankers are dragging their feet on that. But the Chinese have decided that they will be setting a date that they will no longer accept U.S. dollars for any reason, and that will certainly turn the world's economy upside down if the American bankers don't go along. Yeah. So I am continuing to plant my gardens and to pray to the elementals. Every day I'm continuing to look for opportunities to practice forgiveness and to practice joy. So is there something joyous that you did this week, Sunny, that you'd like to share?
Oh, well, let me think here. Actually, I do enjoy my time here at home, and my rather secluded cabin, not completely, but the weather has been nice but changeable, and just now we had a little thunder and some clouds. And I just, of course, I enjoy sharing on the shows. I just enjoyed my prayer last evening with Elizabeth talking about her experience at the memorial service for Prince. That was pretty awesome.
Right. I'm going to look forward to listening to that on our YouTube. Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty.
So, well, I think I'll put the lid back on the candy jar treat and just wish everybody well this coming week. But hold on to your seats. We've got a wonderful guest speaker, Cary Ellis. Are you there from Florida?
Candy, yes. Hello. It's great to be here with you. And I currently am in Florida. I'm not going to say I'm from Florida, but I guess at this point in my journey, I'm from planet Earth. And this global family and global consciousness that is now emerging as we live what the ancients called the shift of the ages. And we're really in exciting times, as I talk about in my book, 21st Century Superhuman. So it's exciting to be here with you, and I love your overview. It's great, and all the news, and you just really triggered some really key thought that I'd love to jump into in relation to some of the things you just said.
Well, that's fine. Yes, that's a good place to start. I know we're going to talk about Keshe and plasma energy after a bit, but yes, go for it.
Yeah, I know you were curious. One of the things I'll tell you, I do regular online TV shows, and they're 21st Century Superhuman shows, and they're on the Naturally Better TV network. But I just recorded a show today that is a galactic message on these scrolls that I was led to in Peru. So I think with where you're coming from and the communication with our galactic family, you'll find that really interesting. But I'm not going to talk about that right now because it's really some neat stuff. But I'm
sure it is, and I want to encourage my listeners here and on YouTube to get a pencil and paper ready so that they can get all the contact information and look up these things you're referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the easiest ways is to my website is under construction. It's called 21stCenturySuperhuman.com. That's just the number 21 and the ST CenturySuperhuman.com. That's sort of the easiest way. And I'm on Facebook as Cary Kira Star Ellis, CaryKirastar. And then Ellis, like Ellis Island, my grandpa landed on Ellis Island, and they named him that. So here I am, an adventurer in freedom, but freedom of the spirit and the mind and the heart that we're all living right now. And I'm so excited to hear that you're growing your vegetables, and I think that so many of us should be doing that at this time. Getting into I know you wanted to talk about Mr. Keshe because I interviewed him recently, and I've been somewhat involved with people who are producing things, the Keshe Foundation and the Keshe free energy and healing products. So we'll get into that in a minute. And I also interviewed Cobra recently and have some connections with his collective. So, we can get into those and talk about them. And each of them kind of borders on the topics you were talking about, which are the earth changes, the solar flares, the tectonic plates moving. And as I listened to that whole discussion, the first thing that came up for me and the first thing that I thought about was something Dan Winter talks about. And I think it's really important, especially right now, because we realize through quantum physics that we are creators. And I know all of you and your listeners know this because I can tell just by, your prayer of the one and the whole framework that you're coming from. And I think we're still teaching ourselves, how do we live that? How do we live as really positive creators here? And I think it's really important. One of the things we look at is that one of the reasons that the earth even is in any kind of turmoil is because humanity has been living so long causing harm, loss, and damage. There's been the corporate structures and the wars and the people pitted against each other and all these different things that we kind of forgot that we were creators, and we chose to live outside of love in what I call blame, fear, judgment, hostility, and control. And whenever we notice any of those kind of things coming up, what I teach in my book, and this is the teaching of true forgiveness from the ancient Aramaic, which is that we remove from within ourselves the data that is causing this to appear in the hologram that we live in. So the overall feeling I got when we were talking about, I listen to Suspicious Observers too, and I'm very aware of a lot of Mr. Keshe has been talking about the movement of the plates right now, the tectonic plates, and we are in kind of an earthquake cycle. And yet when we start talking about that news, I think one of the first things that comes up is this kind of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? Are we still on?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just silenced the doorbell.
Okay.
Yeah.
It said entry and exit times are off, so I wasn't sure if I was still supposed to be talking or not.
No, go ahead.
But it's interesting that happened right when I was saying this to bring our attention to it, because I say that nothing happens in this hologram except what our energy calls in. And when we begin shifting that hologram, we start getting messages. And one of the guys that teaches with me, we do something called Jedi training, and we actually begin to notice how maybe you're just having a certain conversation out in your garden that's literally changing the world, and an airplane flies overhead for the matrix or the old system to feed back information to you and say, hey, we're having to shift because of you. And to begin noticing that we are here to be loving, divine creators, and that we're here to heal and to recover from the harm, loss, and damage that's been done for thousands of years. And because of that, Mother Earth is, as I just interviewed Antonia Lau the other day, she's called the Psychic. She's really awesome. And she was talking about Earth changes and some intelligent survival mechanisms if we are in areas where there are literal changes that take place. And one of the things she says is, Mother Earth is turning over in her bed. She's just turning over, just like she does once every 26,000 years. And whatever we call that, we are in this shift, but at the same time, the type of shift that's happening, one of the reasons the plates are moving is because of fracking. And, we have all of these things that are out of balance in the human culture and the civilization, how we're behaving on the planet. So I feel like one of the jobs of all of us is to always remember to breathe and smile. Because when we do those things, we literally activate a neural plexus in the frontal lobe of the brain and the back of the brain for perceptions and intentions of love. And as Dan Winter tells us, unless we are in bliss, we are going to be electromagnetically bleeding into the system or looking for energy like a parasite does. We need to learn to let go of all these old patterns of fear, of worry, of, what's going to happen next, and learn how to enter into this blissful state. And remembering, the simplest thing I can tell anyone is remembering to breathe. And we activate in the back of our brain intentions of love, perceptions of love, and then smile. And we activate perceptions of love. So intentions and perceptions of love are activated by breathing and smiling, and we literally completely change our state. So when we go out and work in our gardens or visit with our friends or meditate or dance or sing or drum or do many of these things the ancients used to do to attain heart coherence, we enter into a coherent state. We walk barefoot on the earth. We harmonize with the planet. And these are the real tasks before us, to be the activators of the kind of change that we really want to see happen, rather than the old default that's happening. And one of the exciting things, one of the messages of the Galactics in the scrolls that I did the show on today is that this old system will disintegrate, which it means it will kind of fall apart, and we will build a new civilization founded in love. And that is what it's kind of the crux. It's our learning point right now. And we're learning just by everybody gathering together on this show that you're having. We're all learning how to take this next step. We're listening to what's going on around us, but we're looking for the answers, and those clues are around us. And then we have, the leading thinkers who are kind of out there, like Mr. Keshe and Cobra, and I believe each one of them is a nexus point for a galactic collective, giving us downloads.
Absolutely. Well, I have several in our audience tonight, and I'd like to encourage you that if you want to ask our speaker a question, that you just do a *6 and come in to ask a question now or later on in the program. So this is great, and it's so wonderful that everybody is on the same page, understanding the 26,000-year cycle. And Christopher Stephen Jacobs is our main repeat guest speaker, and he channels and bilocates to the Pleiadian mothership and the Syrians and the Ra. So this is great, and the Ra said that he was overdoing it and he needed to take a break this month, and so he will be back next week, May 2nd. Well, yes, he'll be back on Monday, May 2nd on our show. So, but they are so excited about what's happening, about working towards full disclosure.
Yes.
And Christopher has communicated with Cobra, but Cobra said that Christopher should continue working the way he's working, and because Christopher puts up an awful lot of protection, as I'm sure that you do, and I work on that too. Christopher's shown us more about the magical wards that help us against any negative ETs, and we worked hard in February to neutralize the strength of that bombs, and we appreciate that. The work that the Diamond Network did on that was acknowledged by Cobra, but in a very safe manner. Well, would you like to go next with Mr. Keshe or what?
Sure, whatever direction you'd like to go. What would you like to know about? You want me to just generally share with you some things, or you have any certain questions?
Well, we have devoted several shows to his work and are very excited about his efforts, and Christopher said that he's being guided by the Pleiadians and has been for many years. And but there's been all these naysayers and twists and turns since December in his work, and I have felt that most of the naysayers were like trolls, but what you tell me, you're very positive about him, speaking to him personally, and we'd like to know something about the latest and something about some of the exciting work that people are doing with his inventions.
Sure. Yeah, let me jump into that. And let me say also, I think, again, to come back to the principle that we're learning right now, that literally, as Greg Braden says, the Matrix can only give us, see, I've got a helicopter flying overhead right now. Can you hear it? That noise in the background? The Matrix can only return to us that which we give it. And so we want to remember, it's really easy to be caught in this world of, they're the bad guys, or there are negative energies out there, or there are trolls, or there are whatever. And my teaching within this is always the Matrix can only give us something which we are giving it already. And so part of the teaching, again, of the ancient Aramaic, and this is in part 2 of my book, Mind in 21st Century Superhuman, is that we, and Harvard studies say 95% of our data is unconscious. And so in our unconscious data bank, we're just like a computer. We're carrying what has run human civilization for thousands of years: blame, fear, hostility, judgment, and control. And judgment and control are the more subtle ones. I might think I get rid of my blame and my fear and my hostility, but then judgment and control are kind of lurking there, and I see those come up, and I'm like, oops, guess I better clean those out. And so we want to always be cleaning out that old data bank and breathing and smiling and saying, I'm a creator in this world, and I am calling forth the law of one. You know, I'm calling forth that pure goodness and pure love is being created from the energy that my being is holding in this presence. I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you the ending at the beginning. After I interviewed Mr. Keshe, it was on a Saturday, and it was a really interesting experience getting connected on that interview. And in the afternoon, I just had sometimes I feel like I'm getting kind of sucked out of my body. That's what I call it, when the energy is just taking over and I need to just go out into other dimensions. And I just could not stay awake. And finally, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I just kind of went completely out, and instantly I was in this really vivid, lucid dream. And in this place, I mean, it was brighter than it is here. I was sitting in a chair in front of a whiteboard, and there were all these formulas on it. And there was an ET standing next to the whiteboard with a pointer, and he was pointing out the formulas to me. And at the same time, there was this wave of love coming over the top of the whiteboard, and it was just pouring over me. And I just sat there and I thought, wow, I don't even want to leave this wave of love. I never want to leave here. This is incredible. And I felt like that is the place that Mr. Keshe is coming from, and it's the collective that he's bringing us information from. And, you know, we always used to say, well, the ETs are going to bring us the solutions at some point. Well, the ETs are here, and they're here in many ways and many forms, and I believe part of our galactic family is definitely downloading through Mr. Keshe. And that the work that he's doing is, what's incredible is that he's put this work out by teaching humanity through open sourcing. When somebody said to him, well, you need to patent this stuff. You know, he's a nuclear physicist, and he started coming forth with plasma technology. And they said, well, you need to patent this stuff. And he said, well, you know, I want to give it to all of humanity. And they said, well, patent it to all of humanity then. So the Keshe plasma technology is patented to all of humanity. And it has been spread through open source, which was used with computer programming before, but open source means if I give you the secret information on how to do this, then, and you give it to somebody else, then somebody isn't going to come along and, you know, in my garage and kill me off and take away the information, because I've already given it out to so many people. And the guys who developed 3D printing, of course, really popularized this a few years ago. They were from Ohio University, and they had developed 3D printing, and they said, let's just put this out to the world. And within a few weeks, 20,000 people knew how to do 3D printing, and then it went into the millions, of course. And so the same thing has been kind of done with this plasma technology, because in a way, we're like elementary schoolers. We're almost like kindergartners. And this is an incredible science, but what's happening is it's being given to us in a way so that we can fit it and adapt it into the system that we already have. And every person can do it at home.
Absolutely. And I might let you know that I have made my Tesla rings, my 3 coils, and my stacks.
You rock on, girl.
Oh yeah, I made my gowns, my you know, from iron and copper and all.
It's awesome. That is awesome. So you must have a little field percolating in your house, a plasma field.
Well, I haven't finished putting it all together, but Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah, and once you start playing with it, just having those pieces of equipment in your house, and you don't even have to have them completely done. If you watch, again, I've done a lot of videos on people who are doing different things with the Keshe technology, and like one of them last week was a lady who's up in Nova Scotia, and she does all of her nano coating outside. Like she takes her copper and shapes it into the coils that she wants. She dips it into seawater, and she hangs it on the clothesline and lets the sun and the rain and the snow nano coat it. So it's amazing, and she uses some wood ash. It's amazing the different ways that this can be done. And John Carl Anderson, who I've interviewed, or I actually do shows with him sometimes, and he's one of the tech advisors for the Keshe Foundation. He's a good friend of mine. He always says, just pay attention to what you're doing and listen to your inner guidance and follow that, but follow the instructions that we're given. And he says nano coating is like taking those atoms and making popcorn out of them. So nano coating or making GANs, like people want to know, well, what is GANs? It is gas in its nano state. And what is nano coating? It means we're taking the copper and we're opening up the atomic structure so that it can receive the plasma energy. And as Nassim Haramein says, how many on this call, when we were in school, they taught us space is empty, right? Well, space is not empty. Nassim Haramein says the same thing. Did they teach you in school space is empty? Well, yeah, they taught us space is empty, but space is not empty. Nassim says, look, space, is the plasma field. It is the source field. It is the field of creation. And so what we're doing is creating devices and formulations of atomic structure that can begin drawing in and amplifying literally the field of creation, the plasma energy of creation. So understanding that, and it's kind of like the foundation of how this works. And yet the plasma technology is so powerful that they literally could stop a battleship with it, a year or so ago. Did you guys ever talk about that?
Not exactly. One thing I'm doing is on Netflix, I'm going back and I'm watching all the Star Trek Voyager series.
Nice.
Which talks about plasma so much.
Nice. And you're going to be blown away when you see this video I did today of the scrolls and the pictures on there. Now I realize that what was downloaded from 1960 to 1978 by this guy in Peru, which was coming from a galactic mind, they were telling us about plasma technology and all these different things that we now are just beginning to understand. So it's very cool.
Now tell our audience again how they can find this video.
The video that I'm just producing?
Yes.
They can go to, there's a couple of different ways. One is my website. It usually takes me a few days to get them up there, but the easiest way is to find me on Facebook, which is Cary Kiristar Ellis, Cary Kirastar Ellis, Ellis. It's 3 names. I always post them right there at the beginning. Naturallybetter.tv is the online channel that I'm on. And what they can do, if they go to Naturally Better TV, so it's naturallybetter.tv, it's a TV station that I'm on online. You have to go on the computer to it, and then you just look up naturallybetter.tv, and then they can do a search for 21st Century Superhuman in the little search box, and all my shows will come up. Usually my most recent shows will show up on that main window, but if they just put in the search box 21st Century Superhuman, and if they just start looking up 21st Century Superhuman, that's how to find my stuff, basically. And then my website is 21stcenturysuperhuman.com, and if they click the link shows on there, and again, that's 21, the number 21ST Century Superhuman. So 21st Century Superhuman. And they click shows. I've got about 30 shows on Keshe technology on there, so they can look those up. And there's all kinds of things. You know, each one has a title of what it is, and then there's other shows on relationship and all kinds of, you know, community and all the different kinds of things that we're adventuring in right now in this new Earth civilization that's in being born. And then my book, 21st Century Superhuman, Quantum Lifestyle, is for sale on Amazon as a paperback and on Kindle. And it sells as a big green book, which is the original book. It's 500 pages. And then I've also divided it into 4 smaller books, which are part 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is The Shift of the Ages, Mind, Spirit, and Body. And there's tons of good information in there. It's being called one of the most important books on the planet and guidebook for our times. So I just highly recommend getting a copy of it. And you can learn more at my website. As I said, the website is under construction, and there's just a zillion things we're trying to get done to move everything forward here. So
wonderful. Did you have another story about, I think the lady whose nano coating with the clothesline is great. Do you have another story about some of the positive aspects, whether they're getting healthier or their electric bill disappeared or different things like that?
Yes. And again, you know, I'd like to say about the trolls idea and just coming back to that, let's just remember, and I look at this as the entire, because people ask me this a lot. I mean, sometimes people write me and say, how can you even support so-and-so because they're such and such? And, you know, we're going to have people at all different levels of waking up, of course, as you know, around the planet. And so people are going to be saying all different things, and we need to get ourselves educated so that we can know, you know, what's truth to us. And I also believe all of us need to be supporting whoever is moving things forward. I mean, we may not, even if we don't completely get it. So the most important thing that I really recommend, which is amazing, is watching some of the Keshe Knowledge Seekers workshops. I mean, I don't know if people know that those are on right now. They're on every Thursday. I also usually post that in my Facebook, and I have a Facebook group which is called, it's the title of my book, and it's 21st Century Superhuman Quantum Lifestyle. If you put that whole thing in, you end up in my Facebook newsfeed group, and I always post the Keshe Knowledge Seeker workshops in there, or somebody does. And those are like getting to sit for 2 or 3 hours and listen to Mr. Keshe teaching. It's like sitting with Einstein, and it's amazing. And that, if somebody has the patience for it, is really a great way to begin getting kind of your soul nourished by this information and start learning it in a way that you can begin to put the pieces together. But it's, you know, we're entering into a whole new cosmology, so we're trying to shift from how we've always understood science in our lifetimes to understanding it in a completely new way. And quantum physics is that, and plasma energy is that. Plasma energy really promises to take us beyond the fossil fuel culture, really within the next few years, probably faster than we can even think. We're going to start putting this together, and we're going to go snappity crackle pop, and suddenly we're going to be flying across from New York to LA in a little plasma electric vehicle, and we're going to say, wow, I didn't even have to recharge that to get there.
And we didn't have to put down a highway to burn Mother Earth's skin.
Exactly, and those highways are going to get torn up and ground up. There's actually equipment that can pick them up and restore them to Earth. So I also, one of the things I'll mention, and I'm going to tell you about some Keshe devices here in a second, but I also...
Well, I want to say that I've listened to about 25 of his knowledge seminars, and they are fabulous, and people should check in with them every week, like you said, on Thursdays.
Yes, I could tell that you had listened to them because of what you're making. That's what happens when you really listen to Mr. Keshe. You get inspired, but then, you kind of need to learn, too. It's one of the reasons I started doing the shows that I did, and the Keshe Foundation actually asked me if I would keep making those shows because I'm sort of the elementary bridge, like, oh, you want to make GANs? Okay, this is how you do it. And then I go interview somebody who's showing us how to make GANs or how to nano coat, and those are all in that list. If you go to my shows, either on 21stCenturySuperhuman.com, my website, or naturallybetter.tv, and look up 21st Century Superhuman, you'll find the list of my shows, and you'll start seeing different Keshe shows. So one of the couple that I did a really cool show with are called Sybil and Martin, and they live in the Netherlands, and they're just so gifted. They're amazing. She's Greek, and they are making the most beautiful Keshe health pens that you've ever seen, and there are multiple colors, and they contain, crushed ground pieces of crystal and pieces of herbs and essential oils, and they're just amazing. And they very carefully make everything. They're meticulous, and they make their coils, their copper coils. They make the double set of copper coils and nano coat them, and then put the straight copper piece through the center, which is kind of basically the way the healing pen works is they say it's really like a laser, like you're holding a laser in your hand, but that's producing a torus field at the end of it. And what's really exciting now is people are starting to let ice freeze in the freezer with a light on it and the healing pen pointing into it, and you're literally seeing the torus field form in the ice. Because it's kind of like Mr. Emoto's water crystals. We're getting to literally see the torus field and the energy field of these Keshe instruments in the ice as it gets frozen. And some people are putting colored like food coloring in it or whatever, so you can see the shapes better and stuff. So that's one really neat thing. And
that is.
Isn't that cool?
It is.
Yeah, I haven't done a show yet on that. I've been seeing the pictures have just started coming out, but I should do a show pretty soon on those ice formations because they're really making visible, if somebody doubted, oh, really, there's a torus field coming off the end of that. And Nassim Haramein tells us creation is torus field within torus field within torus field. So, and one of our guys, I'm in a number of Skype rooms with different scientists who are discussing this all the time, and one of our guys' names is Boss, and he's from Sweden, and he's a really skeptical scientific guy, and he didn't even build his own Magrev unit. He just ordered it from the Keshe Foundation, and he hooked it up with his electrical system in his house. And one of the things we always like to mention, and John Carl that I work with and Vivek, who are they are the guys who are responding to the questions at the Keshe Foundation all the time. They both say, the Magrev unit, the power unit from the plasma power unit from the Keshe Foundation, or that they've given us instructions how to build so anyone can build one at home. And those blueprints can be downloaded online at the Keshe. It's KesheFoundation.org is the Keshe website, and you can go there and find a link to the blueprints. The link to my interview with Mr. Keshe is right on the homepage there, and the blueprints can be downloaded. They now have an experimental program where they've got capsules that have a small amount of some GANs product in it, I'm not sure what, and people can sign up and get those, and you have to buy them, and then they want you to have an agreement with a doctor or a health practitioner that they'll kind of track what you're doing with them, and then be able to take those internally. So there's a lot of just really exciting things going on.
Well, it certainly sounds like that, yeah. Cary. So they can order these GAN sealed capsules and take them internally, and then monitor the results.
Right. And I
so
go ahead.
That is fantastic. And do you want to, my regular viewers are familiar with most of what we're saying, but there are new people every week. And so
right.
do you want to share a story or two about what the pins, the health pins, have done to do some healings? I'm sure arthritis occurs, yes.
Yeah, and I didn't finish about Boss, where I kind of went in a big circle there, but who ordered the Magrev unit from the Keshe Foundation, and you can look on there on products and order them. And his electrical bill has gone down 30%, and that's just in a couple of months. But, when you hook these units up to your house, there's certain instructions to follow, and you're literally conditioning the wiring in your house to become nano-coated, and the unit is not carrying electricity. It is bringing in plasma energy, and this is something really important to understand, because what we're doing is we're implementing a bridge between the old system and our understanding of the new system, and this is going to take us into a new culture, which is so exciting. And it's so brilliant the way this was done that it's gone out to scientifically minded people all around the planet. I mean, if you look on Facebook, there's a Keshe Foundation in Thailand, in China, and if you've gone to the Knowledge Seekers workshops, there's people all over the world, in the Philippines, in Africa. Africa is going to be a big country that's going to be a big continent that's going to be producing the Keshe technology. So, and the healing pens, basically what you do with them is it's nice if another person can hold it, but if you have to hold it yourself, you can, but it's nice to have another person hold one, and it can be directed at, an area where there's discomfort on the body, and people will see changes take place. We've had some Qigong masters hold them, and they're just really impressed, because they can feel the energy flowing through the thing and how it amplifies their energy. And some of them don't really need the pen. It would be like the Qigong master says, here, you hold the pen because it's going to amplify your energy so it will be as strong as mine, because the Qigong master already knows how to focus his energy or her energy. So, and then we have the pain pads, they're called, which are basically a really simple, we make this material called GANs, which is gas in its nano state, and it's made by taking a couple of metal plates. One is copper, and it's been actually nano-coated, so it's got a black layer on the outside of it, so the molecules have been expanded, and then it gets put in with a copper wire in salt water going between it and you can use nails for the iron GANs, and you can use another piece of copper for the copper GANs, and then you use a piece of zinc for the CO2 GANs. And so we don't look at these and take them internally. They're basically something that we want to handle as a source of, we've expanded the molecules, and we're calling in the plasma energy to be held in this material. And so as we do that, we keep our GANs. It ends up getting washed, so the salt water gets washed off of it. And the same thing is done when people make ormus. It's an interesting, process that we're kind of getting to be part of here. So say you have this cloudy white GANs in the bottom of a jar, and you pour just the water off, and then you put clean distilled water, purified water in it, and let it, shake it up and let it settle out again, and pour that off. And you do that 3 or 4 times until you've got a really clean water that doesn't taste salty, that's kind of sitting with the GANs. And then it's almost like, it's not really homeopathic, but the frequency or the energy pattern of the GANs is getting imbued into that water, which means amplified, plasmatic, source field energy, the kind of energy that creation comes from. And then we take just a little bit of that water and put it in a Ziploc baggie with, you can use a coffee filter or a paper towel, and just to hold that liquid, and it's just so the bag is flat, and then you zip the bag closed. And those are called pain pads, and they can be used on different areas of the body. And they can also be bought from the Keshe Foundation, and people are making them beautiful in all different ways. So there's a whole spectrum and gamut of these healing tools that are starting to be available, and I think we're just really in the early stages of learning and experimenting. And, everybody, there's really probably hundreds of thousands of people now on the planet who are all learning together, and we share this knowledge by participating in the Knowledge Seekers workshops or tuning into like the videos that I'm making, getting where we can be, or joining some of the groups. One of the really nice groups is called, on Facebook, is called the Golden Age of GANs. The Golden Age of GANs. That's a really nice pedestrian group where a lot of good things get shared. So if somebody wants to learn on on just a kind of everyday basis, that's a nice place to see pictures of things going on. Are you in any of those groups, Candy?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
There's a lot of material going on there.
There is.
Really, a lot. And I applaud you for understanding all this and picking up on it. Wow.
Yeah.
When did you first get involved with Mr. Keshe?
You'd be amazed. It's only been probably 6 months or so, and but I'm really deeply involved. I mean, I'm in 2 Skype groups with probably 100 people in each of them, and they're scientific people, and I've listened to a lot of the Knowledge Seekers workshops, and and then interviewing Mr. Keshe himself, which was like a whole other download. And they just had, I want to say this because I'm also involved with, I want to say this about Mr. Keshe. His really primary commitment is to world peace, and his real objective is space travel and time travel, but he says, we can understand how to do all this, but we've got to clean up the desktop first, and the desktop is planet Earth. We've got to clean up how human culture is living. And he says, I will go to these governments and I will say, I'm willing to share this technology with you, but you've got to be willing to lay down your weapons and be willing to participate in world peace. And so that's been the major focus of behind the scenes of everything he's doing. And he, I know you guys are used to talking about things. I know that he basically pointed a finger at the King of Belgium was as being the head of a pedophile ring, probably one of the biggest in the world, or human trafficking rings. So he has been calling out. And I believe I see. So there was just a conference in Dubai that was it was called the Keshe Foundation Peace Conference, and that is really the underlying objective of everything that he's doing and teaching. He says once each one of us understands how to make GANs. The last Knowledge Seekers workshop that was right before the Dubai conference was only an hour long, and I have that listed on my Facebook page and in my group. I'll repost it in my group. But it is a critical one, and it's only an hour long, and he talks about making the GANs and making GANs balls where you put it in. It would be like a ping pong ball, or if you can find a glass or crystal ball that would be similar. And you literally can, by creating this plasma field in your home, in your yard, you're creating like a tent around yourself of safety. And as we look at something, this is a transitional technology to even imagine that if earth changes are happening and millions of people around the world have Keshe technology, we're going to be able to stabilize everything. And we need to understand this and be putting it into practice. So what you're doing, Candy, you should be having little workshops with your people and helping them get started making GANs and nano coding, because as each one of us learns it and passes it on, these are such simple things that we can make at home. It does take a little focus. Like I remember I ordered the GANs making unit at first when it first came out, and I made my GANs with the unit that they sold, and it was so easy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I did something miraculous, and it's easy. But we're having to teach ourselves something new, and it's so outside of the science that we're used to. It takes getting in there and playing with it and visiting with other people about it and, learning and watching other, monkey see, monkey do. If we can watch the people that are doing it and pay attention, see the cool pictures that are coming out and pick something that's of interest to us and just either order something and start experimenting with it or make your own and start experimenting with it. And in my videos that you can find on naturallybetter.tv, if you put 21st Century Superhuman in the little search box in the upper right, you'll come up with, I've got videos with JC on how to make GANs and how to nano coat and how to make the health pen, just really simple. And then Martin and Sybil making the really beautiful ones, and the lady doing the nano coating, just using all the outdoor materials and doing it very naturally. And, there's just tons of good stuff in there. And it's why I'm doing these is, it's hard to absorb from somebody like Mr. Keshe or Dan Winter if you're not already, putting your mind in that place. And so I'm trying to do these simpler explanations showing what somebody is actually doing to put it into practice so that to help all of us learn,
Oh, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful what you're doing because, it does get complicated. And I did have a group, and we were here in Southwest Missouri, but we all had to drive over an hour or two to get together. And then there were all the negative reports. And it's been, we lost some members. But This is great. And has the shipping and receiving of the products that you order, has those problems been solved?
I'm not really sure what the status of that is. I'm sure it's pretty good. I mean, I know the guy who's in there who's actually the one getting it done, and I'm sure that whatever's, you got to realize we're just in the midst of a new science being born, and I know that they're doing everything at the fastest rate that they can.
Well, so if you order it from America, is it stopped at the border, or it doesn't really get to us?
Yeah, I'm sure it gets to you. I don't know a lot of the answers on that at this point. That would be a good thing for me to do a show on, what the status of shipping is. It helps me to hear what people's questions are. So if any of your audience have questions right now, if I can answer them, I will. And if I can't, I'll say, well, that's a good thing to have a show on. If you've got anybody that has a question.
Well, that's great. Yes, if someone would like to do a star 6 and ask Cary a question. Now's the time.
Well, this is funny. I find what you're sharing extremely interesting. And it's been a little while since we've been talking about Keshe. We talked about Keshe more a few months ago or at the end of last year, and refreshing my mind and consciousness about just what an amazing person and scientist he is. And all those devices you talk about are really fascinating, and I intend to look into them further.
Nice.
Yes, and I also was thinking that you would be an excellent guest on our Tuesday show as well, because, the things that you are talking about are definitely new innovations and alternatives to the old world. Style stuff. So
I might say that Sunny was born into a vegetarian commune 70 years ago and has lived in the commune much of her life.
Wow. Where was that?
Yes, well, it was called the Ellis, and it was part of the Faithist Owaspie group. And back in, grew up in just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, Brookline.
Nice. Well, listen, I know we're over an hour, but let me jump in, too, since you brought that up, and just say, Mr. Keshe says that we will, at some point, not kill animals in order to eat. Mm-hmm. The Galactic Collective that I did this show on today says that we are not to kill animals to eat. And a really exciting thing that's happened with the Keshe technology, they've made two things. One is called the Cup of Life, and it is by nano-coating and making GANs with some food products, and then putting the copper that has been nano-coated that way into like a health pen, which is then, it goes into a glass tube that would be, we don't usually handle these things with our hands. They go in a plastic or a glass tube. And so once it's in that tube, you can set it in a glass of water, or you can set an apple over the GAN's water that is sitting in a jar, and it will be permeated into that, and you can drink the water and to really needing very little food at that point. So we're talking about solving world hunger issues with this and a lot of things that are pretty out of balance on the planet.
Sounds like such wonderful solutions to so many of the world's problems. It's just awesome.
Yes, and also being able to clean up the waters as well, because the copper GANs if you can put a few drops into a river or an area that is polluted, and it will begin cleaning it up. It'll drop the pollution down to the bottom.
And what about
on our Diamond show off Monday, Cynthia shared that taking a copper supplement every 6 months will keep your hair its natural color, so you don't go gray.
Wow.
So copper's pretty amazing metal, apparently.
Well, listen, it was really, it's so nice to be here with you all and to hear the wonderful things that you are gathering around. It's like having a campfire every week. You're gathering around together, and you're increasing your radiance with each other, and I just applaud you all for doing that. I just bow to the divine within you, and I say onward and forward, and thank you so much for having me here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming, and that's just wonderful. And so we hope to hear from you again someday, and I'm sure we'll all be checking into your book and your website.
Definitely. And, Candy, if anybody else wants to get a hold of me to have me on the show, you know how to find me, right?
All right. Sure enough.
All right.
Okay. Take care, and much love to all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Cary Ellis. Thank you.
Adios.
Adios.
Well, now you hear. I hope that the word passes that the Candy Shop Show on Wednesdays has great guests every week, even when Christopher Stephen Jacobs needs to take a break. So any last remarks or questions from anybody?
Anybody else on there? Well, I didn't fully understand what the GAN and all that stuff, but I can look further into that. I get the general concept of what she's talking about, but it's something I'll look into more fully. Do you understand that GAN that she was talking about?
Yes, our group has made the GANs, but applying it and putting it together, I think people really need to do intuitive. And like Cynthia and Marianne and others have said, like Mr. Keshe said, he really wants people to make it themselves, and it's not like buying a lamp and plugging it in. Each of these products needs to be attuned to yourself, and you need to just like with Anastasia, where we're soaking the garden seeds for 9 minutes, so that we attune the vegetable to ourselves. This type of plasma energy needs to be attuned to our own self as well, and so. But it is very difficult for people who don't know how to use a drill and equipment, to make our own. But we'll see. We need to find some sources for the elderly who have lots of pains, but certainly need one of these health pens and one of the health pads. And I didn't realize that they were able to make the pad in just a simple Ziploc bag. That's fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
So I am motivated to try to jump back in there, even though I don't have anyone at our commune right now to that has the technical ability to do some of this. But with some studying and work and setting our intentions, I think it'll come together. And I'll try to give more updates and on the shows about what we're producing here, and would like others. It's just on Facebook there is just so much, and again I will tell folks, Cary Ellis has invited you folks to friend her, and the Golden Age of GANs is the Facebook group that talks about all of this, and
good.
That's exciting. Yes,
good.
Well,
I'll make sure to check that.
So is a wrap, and do join us next Wednesday for a great show, and on Monday that will be Christopher Stephen Jacobs with Elizabeth.
All right. Looking forward to hearing Christopher again, even though the other guests have been really good too. All the other guests have been on. It'll be good to hear Christopher again.
May is going to be turning things topsy-turvy. So hold on to your seats and it's going to be into this ride. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night, Candy. Thank you.
Are you looking for healing or a change in your life to help you enjoy it more fully? You might benefit from a galactic energy reading and clearing from Chris Jacobs. Chris will work with you on a soul level to clear unseen negative influences, implants, programs, contracts, and energetic blocks. Chris Jacobs is a gifted energy healer. Contact him today at ChristopherStephenJacobs@gmail.com.